championship.
Extends the hand. There it is. John Finkel wins the most amazing game ever seen.
Oh my God, he repealed into the third ritual.
Oh, 2 8s and a 9. Gabriel Messi does it.
Look at his hand there. He's just like tense. Like, do you have
That's the game!
Unbelievable.
Holy words!
And at 19, Shahar Shenhar is king of the world. Double siege, Seth Canfield is the champion.
It's incredible. I did not expect this at all.
He finds a forest and that's it. Brian Brown Dewan is your world champion. Congratulations to Jensen.
I've been doing this for 20 years. It's been a lot of time, a lot of hard work.
Whether you win or whether you lose, history suggests that the sun will indeed always come up tomorrow. But it sure looks sweeter when you're on the winning side. And today is all about being on the right side of history. Welcome inside our studio here in Las Vegas, Nevada. For Super Sunday, it is our championship showdown. Welcome inside Rich Hagan sitting alongside Marshall Sutcliffe, Maria Bartholdi and Simon Gertz, and it is so great to have you with us. Thanks for giving us whichever part of your Sunday you are in, wherever around the world you are. It is so great to have you with us. We have Team Series Championship on the line. We have history on the line. We have an individual World Championship on the line. Marshall, what are you most looking forward to here on our final day?
I want to see these Guilds of Ravnica cards, Rich. It's that simple. I know it's like a real softball here, but I got a chance to watch these teams test, and I want to see how they do for real with these new cards.
Hey, Simon, what are you looking forward to most?
Latin America, they are the underdogs in my opinion, but they have the chance to get the trophy here, to beat one of the best teams I've ever seen on paper, and also, I mean, Peach Garden Oath, John Finkel. That's just amazing quality of players. If Harrier Latin manages to win this Team Series Championship, that's a huge boost.
Now, in the morning, we are going to open up with our team series. That's the order of business there. But we want to mark your card if you haven't been with us for the first 2 days. Let me tell you what's coming this afternoon, and I'm going to show you our top 4 bracket for the individual World Championship. And what you're going to see is our first semi-final. You'll see every turn of every match as it's played out live. You will see Javier Dominguez against Shahar Shenhar, and when their best 3 out of 5 is done, you will see Gregor Kowalski from Poland against the Hall of Famer from the United States, Ben Stark. Great storylines all around. An amazing year for Kowalski, the Hall of Famer looking to cap out a Hall of Fame career. Shenhar looking to claim a trophy for a 3rd time. And Dominguez looking to go one better than last year. That's this afternoon. But first, well, we found $153,000 lying around the office. We thought we better give it away to someone deserving. And that means Team Series Championship. So why don't we take a look at the team tournament that we're going to see here today. As you can see, we're here for the finale of the Team Series Championship. They battled their way throughout the season. It's best of 3 in each of the matches. Now, the teams have 6 members, but we're going to divide those up into 2 groups of 3 players each. Sounds like a slot machine. Ding, ding, ding. 2 players, 2 groups of 3 for this Team Series Championship format, which is Guilds of Ravnica Team Sealed. We can't wait for the carnage to begin here. It's going to be so good. The winning team share $102,000. The second place team share $51,000. And that is the shape of our morning here at the Magic the Gathering World Championships. And there you see, Team Series champion on the plinth there. Who will be holding it later? I guess we'll find out, Maria.
That's right. We've got lots of amazing players in the building all weekend long, not only competing in the World Championship, but also a lot were waiting in the wings to play in the Team Series final. Why don't we meet the teams?
So that's Team Ultimate Guard, but you need some opponents, and for that, it's time to meet the yellow and red of Latin America. Here comes Hararuya Latin. So look, I need you all to do me a favor. It's not even pre-release weekend yet. I've read the spoiler, sure, I've looked at all the cards in Guilds of Ravnica, I think I have some vague idea what's going on, but I have no idea whether any of these mechanics are any good yet, and I imagine a lot of you at home don't either. So for the next few minutes, we're going to settle in, we're going to work our way through the guilds, we're going to look at their mechanics, we're going to get a sense from these guys whether they're any good or not. So Maria, where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with Boros and Mentor.
Of Ravnica Spotlight, the Boros Legion, and Mentor. Look to your comrades. In them you must see the strength to defend Ravnica. In you, they must see that same strength. We are the Boros Legion. We hold each other up. We make each other better, or we all fall. The new ability Mentor gives Boros troops an edge over any enemy. Observe, Hammer Dropper, an impressive 5/2 creature with Mentor. Whenever a creature with Mentor attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature with lesser power, such as Barging Sergeant. Mentor compares the powers to, count them, 2 times. First, when you choose the target must have lesser power. It checks again as the Mentor ability would resolve. The power of the target creature must still be less than the power of the creature with Mentor. If it's not, the Mentor ability will fail. You will fail. The unit will fail. Pay attention. Attacking with multiple creatures with Mentor may require attention and coordination. You do not want to mess this up. In this battle scenario, Hammer Dropper, Barging Sergeant, and Blade Instructor will all attack together. Well done. Suppose you want to choose Blade Instructor as the target of both Mentor abilities, because a 5/3 is a more impressive killing machine than a 3/1. The 2 Mentor abilities can be put on the stack in either order. Option A, put Barging Sergeant's ability on the stack first, so it resolves last. Hammer Dropper's ability resolves first. 3 is less than 5. Success. Put a +1/+1 counter on Blade Instructor. It is now a 4/2. Next, look at Barging Sergeant's Mentor ability. Barging Sergeant has power 4. Blade Instructor has power 4. Fail! Option B, put Hammer Dropper's Mentor ability on the stack first, so it resolves last. Blade Instructor first passes Barging Sergeant's check, as 3 is less than 4. The now 4/2 Blade Instructor passes Hammer Dropper's check, as 4 is less than 5. Blade Instructor becomes 5/3. Outstanding! Mentor rewards aggression, so attack at every opportunity, but attack wisely. The dead are not fit to serve with the Boros. Dismissed!
Okay, so can we all agree that we're going to talk about these mechanics in the
Yes.
same style as the video?
No, I'm not agreeing
I'm
with
in,
that.
Rich.
I thought you...
Fail.
Yeah, fail.
Success.
All right, Simon, fail or success, tell us about a little bit more about Mentor as we see there.
So Mentor is great because you get a repeatable bonus when you have the chance to get attacking with those creatures, and especially the high power creatures are really powerful because, I mean, a 5/2 for 4 is usually not what you want to play. It just trades with a 2-drop, but it has the chance to grow all these small creatures. Even a 1/1 flying lifelink. I know Marshall would usually not want to play that, but suddenly it becomes good.
Oh, I'm interested. Yeah, this is the type of thing that I think is going to make these decks hum, by the way, are these small creatures that you play early in the game and end up being the recipient of many Mentor triggers.
You were a Boros fan early anyway, right? Like previous iterations of Ravnica. You're a Boros. No?
Boros? No.
Boros, no?
I played
I
Boros.
have no
in-
interest in
Yeah.
Boros. No.
There's
None
no
at all.
blue in Boros.
Yeah, there's no blue in Boros.
Oh, okay. All right.
There's
fair
a B, but
It can be pretty fast, and we had some opportunity to play with the cards, and it felt kind of blazingly fast, Marshall.
enough. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like you're the one to say that to me because
Hey, look,
she's
Marshall,
the one
you're
that
dead.
It's a snowbally type of effect, right? Because if you once the Mentor starts triggering and you don't have the right defenses, you feel like it's just an overwhelming legion of forces that you can't really counter.
Yeah, one of the play patterns too is sometimes you're fine with just getting in once, getting a Mentor trigger and trading off the creature, and you're like, that's fine. If you happen to have a combat trick, forget about it.
So we opened up with Boros because they made us. I have no idea why the next one is what the next one is. Where are we going, Maria?
We're going to surveil.
Guilds of Ravnica Spotlight, House Dimir, and Surveil. Eyes everywhere. You are a Dimir agent. You are required to know what's going to happen before it happens and react accordingly. There is a new tool at your disposal. It is Surveil. Tell no one. This transmission includes 2 images to demonstrate Surveil. First, unexplained disappearance, the best kind in the House's opinion. And here is Deadly Visit, same opinion. After Surveil, there is a number. Look at that many cards from the top of your library. From there, you have a decision. If you see cards you like, ones that will help ensure Dimir supremacy, put them back on top of your library in any order. The rest are to be dismissed, sent to the graveyard, if you know what I mean. I mean, put them in the graveyard. That wasn't code. Other guilds may dismiss the power of Surveil. They will say it's just like Scry. I suppose if one were limited to the perceptive abilities of an infant, one could say that. But the graveyard is much more accessible than the bottom of the library. I trust you will find use of cards you deposit there. Good luck, Agent. This briefing has concluded.
All right, surveil agents. What do we think about it?
Well, I don't. For me, the first thing that jumped out was that it reminds me of Scry, but you're getting this extra ability of putting these cards into the graveyard. So I think immediately, well, how can I take advantage of that? And the truth is that this guild touches 2 adjacent guilds in that way. It touches Golgari, in that Golgari would like to have creatures in the graveyard for its ability, which we'll look at in just a bit here. And then on the other side is Izzet, which also wants to have, or at least can benefit from having cards from its ability in Jumpstart.
We've got Dimir Spybug on the screen there. I can tell you that the only time I've seen this in play, it was in fact an 8/8 flying menace creature. For
Yeah, that thing gets out of control.
By the way, flying and menace, like, was it ever getting blocked?
It's very, very rude, that card.
That is nasty.
Yeah, so Dimir's got a lot going on. Simon, were you a Dimir fan first and multiple times around?
Yes, absolutely. Started off with milling people out in original Ravnica. No, Dimir is just a great deck to play because you have all these options, right? You feel smart when you get to scry, when you get to surveil, when you get to reuse things from your graveyard. You bounce something at an opportunity that your opponent didn't expect. That's the really nice gameplay, I think.
And if we had Paul at the desk here now, I imagine he would point out that scry surveil is sort of a smoothing mechanic. It's a thing that lets you in. It's not necessarily it wins the game outright, but it just means more games that you play, you're going to find more of the cards that make the game interactive and fun.
And that's really important early and late. If you do it early, it gives you the opportunity to find the land drops that you need to get into the late game. And if you surveil late in the game, it gives you the ability to get rid of the lands that you no longer want to find more action.
All right, well, let's head to the Golgari and take a look at Undergrowth.
Guilds of Ravnica Spotlight, the Golgari Swarm, and Undergrowth. Yes, something terrible is coming. But the Golgari will do what we always do. Endure. Life, death. The cycle continues no matter what the overworlders do. They fear death. We use it. New Undergrowth abilities care about the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Here's Moodmark Painter. It turns your dead into a powerful strike for one of your creatures. But each Undergrowth ability is different, so read them carefully. No matter what each Undergrowth ability does, they all benefit from a well-stocked graveyard. So embrace the sending of creatures to their death in combat. Embrace discarding cards. Embrace putting cards from your library into your graveyard. Embrace the cycle. Embrace our new queen and the Golgari as we ascend, even from below.
Ooh, creepy Undergrowth. All right, Simon, what do you think of Undergrowth so far?
There was some good strategic advice in that video. I hope our competitors got to watch that because you really want to stock up on creatures. And the good thing is a lot of the Undergrowth abilities on creatures that you want to trade off, so it kind of fuels itself. It's a very Golgari mechanic.
Marshall, I have 2 questions. First of all, nothing dies forever. Wasn't that a James Bond film?
Yeah, I think it was.
Nothing Dies Forever.
I know that
I
song,
think
yeah.
right. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the first thing. The other thing in that video. They said very clearly one of the things about undergrowth is that all the abilities are different. Now, does that mean that this is a hard mechanic to evaluate? Because you can't just go, undergrowth is powerful.
Yes.
It's like, on this common, not very good. On this uncommon, terrific. This rare, no, don't want it at all.
Absolutely, Rich. That is a key. You really need to pay attention to each and every undergrowth card individually rather than just understanding, oh, it's Mentor, I look at the power, I know what it does. You have to read every single one to see if the payoffs are there. And the thing that was interesting about watching the players test, at least early on, enabling can be difficult. You need to have a lot of creatures in your deck, more than you might normally play, and you need to be willing to put those creatures in the graveyard.
So is synergy something that you're going to want to pay a closer attention to with
Absolutely,
Golgari?
Maria. I mean, this one feels like it demands the most of you. The question is, do you get that payoff?
Right. Fair enough.
All right, up next is a mechanic I'm personally very familiar with because I live in Minnesota and have a car in winter. It's Jumpstart with Izzet.
Guilds of Ravnica Spotlight, the Izzet League, and Jumpstart. Like most Izzet innovation, it started with a crazy idea, or as we call it, an idea. Casting a spell once is so boring, something the other guilds would do. We can do better than that, right? We can. It's called Jumpstart. You're gonna love it. Oh, right, you should see it. Here you go. Jumpstart's a new thing, right? It shows up on some instants and sorceries. I tried putting it on a Nephilim. Bad idea. Trust me. Instants and sorceries, definitely the way to go. Jumpstart kicks in if the card is in the graveyard. Now, how do you get it in the graveyard? Well, casting it works, but discarding it just as good. Just get it in the graveyard. From there, you can use Jumpstart to cast it again. Ha! I know! Now, there are some costs involved. You have to discard a card from your hand, and you have to pay the spell's normal costs. Jumpstart doesn't change the timing rules for spells, so sorceries with Jumpstart are still confined to your main phase. Now, a spell with Jumpstart still uses the stack, so it can be countered even if it was cast from your graveyard. If the spell requires targets, and those targets disappear before the spell resolves, the spell won't do anything. Ooh, making things disappear is pretty cool though. Maybe we'll work on that for next time. If you cast a spell with Jumpstart, whether it resolves or gets countered, however it leaves the stack, it's exiled instead of being put into your graveyard. Discarding a card to enable Jumpstart may seem like a steep price, but open yourself to the possibilities. You can discard extra lands, even better, more cards with Jumpstart. Some of the other guilds like dead things, maybe they can help, like a collaboration. I can't wait to see what you come up with using Jumpstart. You are Izzet, yes? Experiment!
All right, there you have it, Izzet and Jumpstart. Simon, you played around with Izzet, and you did too, Marshall, in our testing.
I did.
The Jumpstart mechanic, first I thought, this is like flashback, right? I get to use my cards twice, but discarding a card is a real cost. However, I think the abilities in general are a bit stronger on these cards than on your traditional flashback cards.
Yeah, you know, for me, when I was playing with and against it, the thing that really stood out to me was that there's this play pattern where I wanted to get my Jumpstart cards in the graveyard to start with, like just casting them. Then I wanted them to stay there for a while because there's a lot of cards that say, I care about how many instants and sorceries I have in my graveyard in exile. And then later in the game, I would draw a land off the top and be like, all right, it's time to start Jumpstarting these cards back out of my yard.
I trust you, Marshall, to be a ruthless destroyer of fun.
Yeah.
You know, that you're one of my go-to guys for. I need some destruction of fun.
Strictly
Marshall,
anti-fun, yeah.
Okay, so on that basis, there's a real sort of tension in Izzet in a sort of flavor game design sense. Because the whole point of Izzet is that it's crazy, it's let's try stuff, it's going to blow up in our faces a bunch of the time, but won't it be wonderful when it works? But in gameplay terms, if the cards are good enough that it works a lot, then you don't get to be the crazy inventor because Owen Turtenwald's drafting all the Izzet cards. And if they're not powerful and it's constantly blowing up in your face, then you're never going to draft them because you can't use them. And that feels like an incredible tightrope.
Yeah, it is. And you'll actually see that a lot with the rares in the set as well. Those ones introduce this this tension, shall we say, with randomness where you're like, this could go very well or very poorly. Though I do feel like with the commons and uncommons, they hit a very nice balance between that feeling that you're trying something a little new, but also it's going to do enough that you feel like it's worth it in your deck.
Right, so it's an example, Simon, where we're using the rarity to put the craziness in places where you're going to have to do a bunch of drafts before someone tries the mythic Izzet rare at back to you.
I tried a bunch of them, and let me tell you, sometimes it worked really well. Other times I milked myself, and I was just not doing anything.
But that's the spirit of it, experimentation.
Absolutely.
And it was a lot of fun, too. Well, we've got one left, so we're heading to the Selesnya with Convoke.
Guilds of Ravnica Spotlight, the Selesnya Conclave, and Convoke. Peace walk with you, friend, for these are troubling times. Tensions rise daily. Community and finding safety in those around you has never been more important. In this set, we're bringing back a familiar Selesnya keyword, Convoke. Here's Rosemane Centaur. When casting a spell with Convoke, you have some options. You can always pay the mana cost, as usual. You can also tap any untapped creatures you control. Each one you tap covers part of the total cost, either 1 mana of that creature's color, or 1 of the generic mana. So you can cast Rosemane Centaur by paying 3 GW. You could tap a green creature to cover the G and pay just 3 W. You could tap a white creature to cover the W and pay just 3 G. Harmonious. Tapping a blue creature won't help with the G or the W, but it will take care of 1 mana, lowering your payment to 2 GW. Have 5 untapped creatures hanging around with nothing better to do? Well, you can cast Rosemane Centaur with no mana at all. Convoke doesn't change anything about when you can cast a spell. Rosemane Centaur is still a creature spell, castable during your main phase. You can tap any untapped creature you control to convoke a spell, even ones that just came under your control. And remember that using Convoke never changes a spell's mana cost or converted mana cost. It changes only how you're paying for it. The Selesnya Conclave can't offer you the deceit, insanity, or decay of other guilds. But if you are interested in the unparalleled power and enormity of nature itself, welcome home.
So there's the Selesnya Convoke mechanic. Marshall, what do you make of Selesnya this time around?
Explosive. It's explosive. This is the type of thing where if you're willing to commit to playing some cheap creatures, specifically the 1-drops that we talked about earlier, you can get huge creatures down quickly. The key is taking advantage of either one huge creature or a bunch of small creatures.
And obviously this is a returning mechanic. And so what do you make of it, Simon? Simon?
Whoa.
Simon?
Oh.
Hello. Hello, Tim. How are you?
I've been
Tim's
summoned.
appeared.
That was a significant upgrade. Great stuff. Welcome along to the desk.
Did Simon not do a good enough job, or?
We're ruthless
Like,
like that.
should I be sitting up straighter, or am I going to get kicked out of here too?
No, I mean, you're currently at a 6.5, and
I don't know.
that's
We
okay.
might all end up with British accents by the time
Yeah,
Rich is done with us here.
Little
Now, that
invasion.
would be a strict upgrade. Okay, so we've welcomed him into the booth because what we're going to transition to, we've set the scene with our 5 mechanics, but where we're heading next is, for you two guys, a pretty extraordinary opportunity. Tim, you've been around coverage for a long old time. Was Wednesday one of the strangest, most just awesome days you've had in your coverage history?
It's definitely right on up there because this week we got a chance to do something that's very, very unusual when it comes to this level of Magic, which is to say that we got a chance to see some of the best players in the world looking at new cards for the very first time and coming in from zero, essentially. While, of course, there'd been some previews on the websites and so on, there were a lot of cards that on Wednesday no one had heard of, and suddenly they were holding them in their hands, they were trying to build decks with them, they're trying to test for one of the biggest tournaments of the year.
And the thing is, Master, it isn't just players were opening packs of Guilds of Ravnica.
Right.
It was Pro Tour champions, Hall of Famers, 558 pro points, opening up a pack and going, what do I think of this first common that I'm seeing for the first time?
Yeah, I got to see firsthand. I was watching the Ultimate Guard Pro team. Ruthless efficiency applied to a huge data set, right? And I know that sounds a little mechanical, but that is actually how it felt when I was sitting there with them. These guys are professionals, and they were ruthless, quickly opening packs, immediately getting down to the nitty-gritty on everything.
So one of the interesting things, because I sort of split it between the two, is it was very definitely differences of styles, but not just team versus team, but within that. So, for example, Owen Turtenwald, every time he played a card, would say, here's the name of the card, and almost always announce what it did.
Bless his heart.
I'm going to play this 2/3 flyer vigilance 4/4 mana.
I'll tell you what, there's 2 camps. There's the Owen Turtenwald camp, who is accurate and professional, And then there's the jokesters. And they kept playing cards and give them names of similar, but oftentimes way more powerful Magic cards that weren't even close to it. And I'm like, how am I supposed to figure out what these cards do? I have to lean over and read them every time. They would always come up with some random nickname for every card.
But there's also that step in the middle, which is the other thing. And this is actually, I think, very useful for players at home. When you don't have a frame of reference for the card within its own new set, what is it equivalent to? So I heard so many cards being listed as it's pacifism costs 1 more.
Yep.
Or it's this removal spell, but at sorcery speed.
Yeah.
And there was a but or an and on top of an existing Magic card that gave you some sense of what area of the game you were working.
That's how my brain works. When I first start breaking down a new set and looking at things, I look at things that I recognize that I know well already and combine them. It's kind of like when you're describing a new band to somebody, you know, and you're like, oh, they're kind of like this band you like with this other band you like, but with a hint of this other band you like. It's like that. And I just push these pieces together in my head. This doesn't have anything to do with the name of the card, unfortunately. I have to memorize those separately. But this is clearly how the pros do it, too, because they describe the cards in that way.
So basically the funk of Wolfpack combined with the tonal harmonicness of Hildegard of Bingen, for example.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they did. All right, we'll come back to you, Marshall, to talk more about Ultimate Guardian Mo, but first.
All right, Tim, you kind of had the opposite end of the spectrum as far as how things kind of went with Hyrule Latin.
Yeah, and I think one thing to say is with Hyrule Latin, I mean, for those of you that go to a pre-release and you're all excited about opening your first boosters and seeing those cards and holding them, that excitement doesn't go away just because you're at the very top of the game. When they got to their very first packs, they were as excited could be. They still got down to business. There was a lot of conversation, but you really felt a sense of sort of camaraderie, team spirit as they were going through. Each person kind of had their own role within the team, and equally, each person kind of, before they even picked up the cards, kind of knew, you know what, I'm more of a control player. I want to take these blue cards and figure out them. You figure out these green cards, and between them, hopefully we'll figure out the entire format.
And they were having a lot of fun while they were doing this too, right, Tim?
They certainly were. I mean, it's something that, I think that they were very keen on making sure that they didn't let the importance of the situation get to them too much. So in addition to playing a lot of serious games, it got to a certain stage in the day where they thought, you know what, we've been playing for 6 hours. We've got a chance to play this in very sort of intense fashion. At the end of their day, they decided, you know what, we're going to get some packs together. We're going to play Pack Wars.
I love it.
They started singing the Game of Thrones theme, talking about maybe making little packs, making alliances, breaking them. And then they cracked open packs and just started attacking one another and having a really good time. There was a lot of smiles, a lot of laughs on that team. But you know what? Underneath all of that, the reason that they were able to enjoy themselves so much was that I think there's a quiet confidence there. They really do know what they're doing.
The thing that I want to know is when you've got a brand new format, not only are you having to figure out what the cards do and how good they are individually, but when you're talking about Team Sealed, you have to think about splitting colors and how are we going to do that? Is there anything that got left by the wayside? What did you see when you were in there?
Well, it turns out that some of the mechanics work in a more sort of insular fashion than others. So, for example, if you're building a Boros deck, if you're in red-white, that's a deck that really can't afford to splash too much, and pretty much it's on one plan. It's playing a lot of creatures, a lot of combat tricks, and just trying to get there relatively quickly. Whereas if you're on the likes of either a Dimir plan or a Golgari plan, you can potentially start fusing them together a little bit. And if anything, I would say that the color that got split the least outside of Boros was green. Green was a color that they felt maybe need a little bit of support. So sometimes you would see kind of almost more of an Abzan list than simply Selesnya or Golgari on its own.
All right, Marshall,
Yeah.
from the Ultimate Guard perspective, 5 colors, 3 people on a team, but guilds want 2 colors. So what was their sense of what they might have expected to happen when they got to today and actually had to build for real?
Well, they decided to try to pin down the guilds themselves as quickly as possible. That was clearly their goal. They were not splashing around until some of the later builds. By the way, they got through a lot of builds, and they were playing full 3-match rounds as they're going to be doing, in future events here. So they really tried hard to stick within guild and understand that guild well, and then later on we saw them branch out a bit. Of course, every player has their own preferences, and John Finkel was just hoovering up the blue and red cards every single
Really?
They just handed them to him.
You stunned me.
And said, we'll be over here, let us know what we get to play with after. But honestly, as a result, he was really starting to get proficient with the Izzet deck by the time the testing ended on the first day.
And that's important too for people who go out and play Team Sealed, at a Grand Prix or something like that, knowing what you're good at. Like, don't hand me a control deck and expect me to win all of my rounds. You know what I mean? It's a valuable skill.
It is.
Okay, well, we're closing in on the end of deck building, and I can tell you that we now know all the rares that were opened by the 4 squads of 3. So we're going to take a look at those now, and we're going to begin with Ultimate Guard, the team of John Finkel, Andrew Cuneo, and Paul Rietzel. And they will be sitting in seats A, B, and C. Let us show you here what we are looking at. So there's a Dawn of Hope there, Light of the
Rich, there's one card that may not jump out to you right now, but I'm telling you, after you've played this format, it will. It might be the best card in the format.
Okay, what's that?
Doom Whisperer. Right there in the middle of the screen, that mythic rare. 3 black, 6/6 flying trample with an activated ability, pay 2 life, surveil 2. Somebody played that thing against Reed Duke, and he got attacked, and he went to do a block, and they're like, it has trample. He's like, what? He just picked, and Reed's not super emotive when they're testing it. He's just like, is this real? That card is completely absurd.
Yeah, okay. So that is pulled through. Now, of course, because it's team sealed, pretty much all the competent rares, Marshall, are going to go somewhere, right?
Oh, absolutely. There is no problem finding homes for basically every rare on here. Single color rares are easy. Those are going to be in every deck. And occasionally a gold bomb will make it into the sideboard, but it's rare. Usually you can find a way. Remember, you're getting a gate in every pack. You're getting 12 gates plus some lockets plus some random shocklands in there too.
What do you think about kind of conditional sweepers, Marshall? Destroy all creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less, like Ritual Soot or Deafening Clarion.
We were seeing those a little more on the sideboard end of things.
Okay, so that is their pool. They are against Harry Latin, as of course they must be, the pool of Carlos Ramel, Marcio Carvalho, and Tiago Saporito. So why don't we take a look at the rares that they have been working with this morning. So Tim, we've got a Hatchery Spider, Mnemonic Betrayal, Chromatic Lanterns back again, of course. Anything that stands out to you there?
Well, I mean, I guess the first thing that stands out, we're talking about Team Sealed here. There's normally 12 rares. There's 13 here because one of them is in foil. But to be honest, it's not about there being the extra card. 2 copies of Hatchery Spider is where I'm kind of leaning here. Hatchery Spider on its own, very, very powerful. The undergrowth ability, when you cast it, you get to reveal the top X cards of the deck, where X is the number of creatures you have, put a green permanent into play. So it's a 5/7 reach on its own for 7, brings a friend, and when you've got 2 of them, suddenly you can generate a deck that's got a lot of creatures in play. And even though it says undergrowth on it, potentially this could be good in Selesnya too, because with Convoke you can get a lot of creatures in play, and this is just a fantastic value topper at the end of your curve.
And you might be looking at this and being like, I've got 2 lands, disappointing. But Guildmage's Forum, it has the potential to be kind of explosive.
Yeah, Guildmage's Forum, I mean, if we're talking about splitting cards between decks, it's actually one of the more complicated ones because all of these decks can potentially end up with a lot of multicolored creature spells, and figuring out the right deck to put it in can be a bit of a challenge.
Okay, so there you see Harry Latin in the Players' Lounge gearing up to join us here very momentarily.
They look really stressed out.
Yeah, Ramel, Carvalho, and Saporito will be the
They're
first
ready for more
up.
pack wars.
Right, but meanwhile, back at the rares, our second matchup, so that's final one. Then we'll see Reed Duke, Owen Turtenwald, and William Jensen going at it for Team Ultimate Guard. Let's take a look at the pool of rares that they were working with. Back to the customary 12. And Marshall, what do we see here?
Lower left, that is a Planeswalker.
Oh, it is.
Wow.
All right,
Izzet
hello,
Viceroy.
Rolf.
Very powerful card with a +1 ability that lets you look at the top 2 cards, put 1 in the yard, 1 in your hand. -3 can kill stuff, but you need instants and sorceries in your exile or graveyard, and an ultimate, as is typical, is I basically win the game whenever I cast an instant or sorcery. I get to do 4 damage to anything and draw 2 cards. The other card that stands out to me, though, is Find and Finality. That is a card that I got to watch Paul Rietzel play to a devastating conclusion. You put 2 +1/+1 counters for Finality on one of your creatures, -4/-4 to everything else, which to me elevates it above that conditional question like what Maria had earlier. That's just basically a sweeper.
Yeah, that happened to me.
Did that? You got Finality?
I got thoroughly, ruthlessly Finality.
Yeah, it's brutal. And then Find is a nice backup plan too.
Right. Yep. So that is the pool for Ultimate Guard for Duke, Turtenwald, and Jensen, which means, Tim, we're then looking at Pozzo, Salvato, and Berto for Harry Latin. What stands out to you here?
Well, we've got another spider in here, but that's not really what I want to talk about this time. We've got Niv Mizzet Paran, a very challenging casting cost, blue, 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 red, 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 but if you can play it, it has a big impact on the battlefield. Firstly, big flying dragon, but then very, very easily you can end up dealing a lot of damage to any target, because it's whenever you draw a card, you deal damage to a target, and whenever any player plays an instant or sorcery, not just you, so your opponent too.
Brutal.
I had that
played
card on the
against
battlefield. Yeah, it was great.
We could actually see, therefore, depending how the pairings line up, we could see Niv Mizzet Perun in an Izzet deck on one side of the table against Ral Izzet Viceroy on the other side of the table in the Izzet Civil War.
It'd be carnage because, I mean, every time the other Izzet deck plays a spell, Niv Mizzet says, all right, I'll draw a card, I'll shoot something.
Yeah.
How's Ral meant to stay around?
Yeah, I like the Niv Mizzet side of that equation too. Although that casting cost is extremely difficult, as you pointed out.
All right, so fantastic stuff. There's our arena players, not quite here yet. They've been sequestered away, so they have no idea what rares got opened, so we'll just keep it between ourselves. That's okay with you? Good. And don't try texting the players, because we took away their phones as well. That's what sequestered means. Yeah, good thought, though. Saw what you did there. Right, anyway, moving on. What we're going to talk about now is we're going to explore how the teams got to this team series final, because this wasn't about winning one tournament or doing well one weekend. This was a year-long quest to reach this Sunday showdown. So why don't we take a look, and Maria, we're going to open up by looking at Pro Tour Ixalan.
Yeah, taking a look at the pro points here that the teams kind of racked up during this Pro Tour is really where the story is going to be told. And Ultimate Guard Pro Team got off to a really good start at this Pro Tour. As you can see, 11 pro points for Owen Turtenwald, 10 for Reed Duke, 10 for Paul Rietzel, and 10 for William Huey Jensen just at this one Pro Tour. Haruya Latin, however, had a little bit more work to do coming up in the later Pro Tours, as they got 6-6-6, 3-3-3, which all told isn't too shabby either.
Right, and bear in mind, you're seeing the down at the bottom there, John Finkel and Lucas Esperberto in italics. That's because their points didn't count. Remember, at each Pro Tour, you count the top 5 placed finishes. So that was Pro Tour Ixalan. That opened up the season, and at that point you kind of thought, well, that makes sense. Ultimate Guard are in the thick of the mix. Haruya Latin, not a great performance, but we didn't really know how good that team was going to be at that point. So we move on from Pro Tour Ixalan to Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan.
Yeah, and this is where Ultimate Guard Pro Team really starts to pull away from the field. You can see current position first here after this Pro Tour. Reed Duke, 18 points. John Finkel, 15 points. But look at this over on the other side. Haruya Latin, Luis Salvato might as well win the whole thing. First place finish, 30 pro points for him. Lucas Esperber, 2 as well. Excellent finish in 16th, 11 points, propelling their team to 4th place spot.
Yeah, I think what's really critical there is that the fact you've got 3 players there in the top 32. Because to win, you have to be lucky. You have to have the right pairings, the right matchups, things to go your way on Sunday. But when you put half your team in the top 32, that basically means round about 11-5, 12-4, and upwards. That's what they did there, and that's where Haruya Latin really made us sit up and take notice. So we're halfway through the Pro Tour season at this point, and where do we go next? Well, we go to the world of Dominaria, Maria.
All right, so once again, Haruya Latin with a great finish, as well as Ultimate Guard Pro Team. Owen Turtenwald finishing 3rd here, Marcio Carvalho in 4th, 22 points for Marcio, 24 for Owen. Reed Duke once again here near the top of the standings in 15th, 15 pro points. And Haruya Latin, besides Marcio, didn't quite put up the numbers quite that Ultimate Guard Pro Team did, but managed to get to 2nd, while Ultimate Guard kept their position at 1st.
Now, what really counts down at the bottom here is at this point, yes, they were in 1st and 2nd, but Ultimate Guard were a country mile ahead of the field. It wasn't just that they were the 28 points clear of Haruya in 2nd. They were so far in front of the field, it looked like it would be almost impossible for them to miss out on being here for the top 2 Championship Series showdown. As for Haruya Latin, however, they had headed a chasing pack, and it was by no means certain that they would be able to hold on. So then we move on to the 25th anniversary Pro Tour, the 4th Pro Tour of the season. And this, of course, was our Team Pro Tour, which meant that all of a sudden the variance was utterly huge, Maria, because instead of 6 horses in the race, you only had 2.
Yeah, and this was where the sweat was. It came down to the very final tail end of this tournament. And you can see Haruyu Latin here just surging ahead into first place with 16, 16, 16, 13, 13, 13 for their team. And Ultimate Guard Pro Team kind of falling on the wayside a little bit with 4 pro points for everybody down there on that team. But enough in the end to get second.
Yeah, now, Carvalho, Ramao, Sabrito in third, Pozo, Beto, Salvato in sixth. That is, you could run that Pro Tour 100 times and never expect to have that strong a finish from your two teams, whoever you are, however good you are. It was an utterly crazy finish. And in the end, Ultimate Guard got here by the absolute skin of their teeth.
Yes, they did.
By results happening in the top 4. So now, this is how things played out over the season, Maria.
All right, so take a look there. Reed Duke, 47 total pro points by the end of the season. Owen Turtenwald, 39, 29 for John Finkel, 25 for Paul Rietzel, 20 for Andrew Cuneo, and 17 for William Jensen. Over on Haruyu Latin side of the table, 55 for Luis Salvato, 48 Marcial Carvalho, 30 for Lucas Escobar-Bertu, 29 for Carlos Ramao, 26 for Tiago Saporito, and 24 for Sebastian Pozzo.
Now, I think a lot of people, leave that on screen if you would for a moment, because I think a lot of people are thinking that, yes, the team on the left, Ultimate Guard, are huge favourites here because of their storied history. But let's not worry about who won what Pro Tour in 1998 or 2002 or 2009. Let's just look at the fact that the top 2 pro point finishes there both come from Haruyu Latin. Basically, across the board, they are a notch higher at each position, more or less, than Team Ultimate Guard. The last 12 months of Magic suggest that Haruyu Latin are actually the favourites. We've been joined at the desk, once again, by a Pro Tour champion, knows a thing or two about sealing the deal, Simon
Am I allowed
Gertsen.
back here?
Yeah, well, and welcome back. Well, the thing is, you know, we didn't want to let you into those testing rooms because we knew you just couldn't resist saying, no, I think you've misevaluated that comment.
Helping
there.
out John Finkel and all the other guys.
Taking care of business for them. But it's great to have you here because we are going to transition now to preview our first final. Remember, this is the way it works. 2 groups of 3, the team split into groups of 3 and they build as groups of 3. We will have 3v3 now. In about an hour's time, we'll have our second final. If it's then tied, we will have a tiebreak. The winners of each of our first 2 finals will play off to determine the outcome. So what we're going to do is look at the first trio from Team Ultimate Guard. And we begin with in Seat A. This is going to be the matchup. It's going to be John Finkel, Andrew Cuneo, and Paul Rietzel against Carlos Ramao, Marcio Carvalho, and Tiago Saporito. And the way that's written there is how they will play. In Seat A, if you will, it is John Finkel facing off against Carlos Ramao. That's multiple Pro Tour champion against world champion. Then you've got Andrew Cuneo from Team Ultimate Guard against the runner-up, the finalist from Worlds in 2016, Marcio Carvalho. And then Hall of Famer Paul Rietzel in Seat C will go up against Bolivo, Tiago Saporito. So let's meet all those players in detail now. And Maria, why don't we start off with someone who's a little bit good, and that is John Finkel. Let's take a look at his career resume for you.
Yeah, we call him the GOAT for a reason, greatest of all time. Take a look at that. Pro Tour top 8s, 16. That is almost unbelievable. He is the leader in lifetime Pro Tour top 8 finishes, of course, with a number like that, 695 lifetime pro points, and quite a lot of cash in lifetime earnings. John Finkel. It was a real pleasure to watch him kind of testing the other day and all that kind of stuff, and watching him play is likewise very, very fun.
Yeah, and he was, Simon, he was the real John Finkel in testing, every bit as much as in match play. Head in hands, hunched over the board, just absolutely invested in the correct line of every turn.
I think this might be his tournament because he's a natural. He just has all the talent, the raw talent, and that means the closer the time of preparation is, the better he can use his intuition and skills that he has basically accumulated over so many years.
So Finkel, the greatest of all time. That means his teammates can't be the greatest of all time, but they're still rather good. In the middle seat, it's Andrew Cuneo. So let's take a look at him for you. And his career, 347 lifetime pro points, couple of Pro Tour top 8s. He is in great shape at the moment, having just come off a Grand Prix triumph with white-blue control. And he is one of the pioneers of the Draw Go deck. If you are a fan of playing blue spells and doing as little as possible until you counter everything that your opponent has ever done or ever wanted to done, do. That man there is one of the reasons you get to do that. He is an astonishing control player, and his insight and intellect are littered through the annals of deck building history. He is a monstrously good player. Do not underestimate Andrew Cuneo. You played against Cuneo at any point, Simon?
No, our careers didn't overlap, but I find it super impressive that he's basically an old school player, but he's super active right now. You see him grinding these Magic Online leagues, playing MTG Arena, streaming, and he's just incredibly good. Not just at control, at mono red, anything.
Yeah, and he's been kind of running the tables at Grand Prix this year too, Rich. It's just really impressive to see somebody, like you said, coming back from a long storied history of the game, making a real run at it at this point too.
He's also been dominating the arena drafts. He's on there drafting
really?
mono red all of the time. He's mono red, I think is what you would describe Cuneo as. And you know, he just loves the game. He just keeps coming back for more. And right now, he's about to sit down for one of the biggest matches of his life. In seat number 3, who have we got? Well, it's another Hall of Famer, Maria. It's Paul Rietzl. Let's take a look.
All right, here you see him on your screen. Paul Rietzl, Pro Tour top 8s, 4 Pro Tour Amsterdam 2010 champion, 493 lifetime pro points, more than $200,000 in lifetime earnings. Paul Rietzl, he likes to play aggressive decks. He likes to swing in with creatures. He's a man after my own heart. What do you think, Simon?
I have a lot of respect for Paul. He's just a champion in the end. You can tell from his demeanor, always fair, always polite, but at the same time, he wants to win.
I think that champion thing is really important because a lot of people feel that the Peach Garden Oath, who we're going to see in about an hour's time, that's Reed Duke, Owen Turtenwald, William Jensen, are the stronger trio within Ultimate Guard, and that is a narrative that Finkel, Cuneo, and Rietzl actively play up for themselves. But these are people who routinely close and routinely win the whole thing. And certainly, I was chatting with Paul on Wednesday. I said, you know, if it actually came down to 3 against 3, I would be terrified if I was betting against Paul Rietzl because he's a champion.
Yeah. I mean, I think if we count the trophies, that team might actually have more than the Peach Garden Oath.
I am sure that there are more trophies on the Finkel, Cuneo, Rietzl side. But that's true of John Finkel with almost any combat.
John Finkel
He
and
could just
you
be
and
up
Maria.
there by himself with his some trophies, you know, in seats C and A.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so let's take a look at their opponents. It's Harry Latin, of course. It's Carlos Romão, Marcio Carvalho, and Thiago Saporito. Let's take a look at the 2002 world champion, Carlos Romão. He is going to be up against John Finkel in this match. 350 lifetime pro points. That's quite a lot. Pro Tour top 8's 3. Closing in on $200,000 lifetime. That'll certainly be true by the time this is done. The 2002 Magic World Champion in Sydney. Simon, one of the godfathers of Brazilian Magic, as he's known.
Absolutely, and also one of these raw talents, one of these intuitively good players. I remember how he broke the Psychotalk mirror match, how he was just dominating events, and I'm really looking forward to this matchup against John Finkel.
And we got a chance to talk to him yesterday, too, here at the desk, Rich, and he's just such a fun guy.
Yeah, Carlos Romão doesn't take life too seriously, doesn't take Magic too seriously. He understands that it's simultaneously the most important thing that there's ever been and also the least important thing there's ever been, because life goes on, win, lose or draw. You know, I'm sure he'll have a great time today, whether he wins or not. That's not what he's come for. He's come to play the game. So good luck to him, of course. What about seat number 2? Who have we got?
We've got Marcio Carvalho sitting in seat number 2, and Marcio is one of those players who just consistently puts up incredible finishes. Just tournament after tournament after tournament, 431 lifetime pro points, 5 Pro Tour top 8s, extremely impressive. 2016 Magic World Championship finalist. Bridesmaids, kind of the story for Marcio Carvalho. We'll see if he can be the bride, quote unquote, and take down this tournament.
I don't want to be offensive, but I'd be a little disappointed if Marcio was my bridesmaid. I'm just saying. Best man, possibly, but bridesmaid, that's conjuring up all sorts of images I could have done without, to be honest. All right, so that's Marcio in seat number 2. Simon, he is clearly one of the best players in the world, and interestingly, this field, we asked them, who do you think the best 4 players in the individual World Championship field are? 4 names over and over: Seth Manfield, Reed Duke, Owen Turtenwald, Marcio Carvalho. It was almost universal that those were the top 4. So the pros themselves definitely acknowledge that he really is one of the best.
And I would be part of that group as well. I see Marcio the most out of these guys when I do the European GP coverage, and the amount of times where he's just at X2, X3, grinding out these super impressive finishes over and over again. For me, Marcio is one of the best players right now.
So in seat number 3 for Harari Latin, it's Thiago Saporito. Let's look at his career for you and get a sense of who he is. 228 lifetime pro points, couple of Pro Tour top 8s, 133,000 in lifetime earnings. He has very good memories of right here in Las Vegas, Nevada. He is the Grand Prix champion from 2017.
Yeah, I love Thiago. He's another really nice guy, very shy, kind of quiet when he comes to these tournaments, but he's extremely nice, really funny. I asked him once about his Magic Online username, Bolivo.
Bolivo, right.
And I said, what does that mean? And he said, well, it's my nickname. And I said, well, what does that mean? And he says, my friends like to call me it because it means egg-shaped.
The little egg.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that was pretty cute.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, so Thiago Saporito, why don't we take a look then at the overall matchup? Because remember, this is the best 2 games out of 3 in each seat, AVA, BVB, CVC. If you get to 2 match wins, that is it. You don't play out the 3rd match. So we have no idea at this stage which one of seat A, B, or C, left to right, is going to determine this. But 2 wins out of 3 for either Finkel, Cuneo, and Rietzel, or 2 wins out of 3 for Ramau, Carvalho, and Saporito will give their team a 1-match-0 lead in this Team Series Championship. Then we'll bring in Duke, Turtenwald, Jensen, Pozzo, Salvato, and Berto, and they'll face off. The losers of this match must win Final 2 to force a playoff between the 2 trio-winning squads. If it's 2-0, that's the end, and $102,000 goes to the winning team. So keep that on the screen for us. Simon, walk us through the matchups. Obviously, we have no clue yet about what decks they've actually built. We've not seen any deck lists, so that's a voyage of discovery for us. But John Finkel, Carlos Ramau, that is a massive matchup for a start.
That's for me the match of what's currently in the feature meta, because it's just 2 titans of the game basically clashing against each other, and it's, like I said, it's a lot of raw natural talent.
So that's in seat A. In the middle seat, we've got Andrew Cuneo against Marcio Carvalho. Would you give the edge to Marcio there?
I was debating, and I think it's a tiny edge for Marcio, but Andrew Cuneo is also just a great player.
And then seat C, Thiago Saporito is up against Paul Rietzel. That to me feels like the most imbalanced, possibly, that Paul Rietzel is where you would want to be in his seat, given 100 iterations of deck building and so on.
I think so. For me, Thiago is more of the Magic Online grinder type, and that's usually a lot of repetitions, a lot of practice, a lot of getting familiar with lines of play, with decision making, and that's something that you just don't have in this event, which is basically a pre-release.
So let's do a quick public service announcement, because you've just said a pre-release, Simon. Obviously, the cards are super, super new to all of us. So if you're at home and you have access to a laptop or a phone, I strongly advise open up Gatherer on Magic the Gathering. Open it up there, take a look, open up the card image gallery for Guilds of Ravnica, so that you can, anytime you want to look up a card, get a sense of what cards do, particularly whether you just missed what the booth said about a particular card. Does it fly? Is that Menace? Was that 2-3 or 2-2? Look it up along with us. We will put as many cards on screen as we can for you as we go through the matchup. And I can tell you that the commentators in the booth have been up, not quite all night, but I don't think they got much sleep trying to go.
Yeah, I came in this morning and I saw Tim in the green room. He had, like, you know,
the
motivational music blasting on his phone as he was looking through the spoiler trying to memorize the cards. So kudos to them. They've been putting in a lot of hard work.
Yeah, they certainly have. So we can't wait to bring you all the action here. And the good news is that we won't have to. The players have built their decks. They took 2 hours this morning, came in at 8 o'clock this morning, got their 12 packs. We've already shown you the rares. We've shown you how they got here. Simon, right back at the start of this show on Friday, when we talked about Team Series, you went, Ultimate Guard, dead easy, of course. Now that we're here, you still that confident?
Now that I've seen the numbers, the pro points of last season, small favorite, yeah. it's gonna be. I would say I would put it at 55, 60%, maybe.
Okay, well, it is time for Guilds of Ravnica to take center stage. It is time for the Team Series Championship to take center stage. It is going to be quite the ride this Sunday morning, and that ride starts now.